it like that.
Watching another episode of Highly Respected with yours truly, Miss Streetz, and I have something very special for y'all. At least to me, it's dear and special. This shirt right here says it all. It's actually like my third or fourth Queen's shirt, but we'll get into all that. I have a special guest with me, Gerry, but he's the founder of School of Hard Knocks and Tradition. How you doing, Gerry?
I'm good. I'm fine. I'm living. I'm breathing. I'm still grinding and moving on with what I have to do in the apparel space, I should say.
Yes, yes. And speaking of apparel, like I said, you are the founder of School of Hard Knocks and Tradition. Talk about both. Well, let's go back to the beginning at least. With the sneaker store that you and your dad started. Talk about that and let the people know.
Yeah. So I mean, for those who know me, Gerry's what everybody knows me from back in Queens, and Queens, born, raised. East Elmhurst, Corona area. Our store is located on Northern Boulevard, and Northern Boulevard, the name of the store is Vaughn's. My father's name is Vaughn. And we were basically a Black-owned business that was started real humble beginnings of just, my father was a self-taught shoe repairman. So he used to make and repair shoes. He used to make women's shoes, and my uncle used to make men's shoes. On that side of town, and they did what they had to do. But as we all know, life evolved. I got older. Hip hop came into play, and things that growing up in a Trinidadian household, I'm getting into hip hop and the music and the videos, and my father's just watching his son evolve into something that nothing bad, but he knew what was out there. But things that I used to gravitate to, and part of that culture, the hip hop culture, was the fashion element that I was into. Having everything that was in style and wanting things, and some things you couldn't have, but you found your way in it, you made your style. And he, in his business, I started to help him out, doing every little odd end job. And then one day, just really told him, we need to start carrying sneakers, and that led into us becoming kind of like a haven where people, like every area of Queens, everybody had those places you went to. If you were in Jamaica, it was the Coliseum. If you were in Long Island City, it was QP's, Brooklyn, Fulton Street, whatever it was. For us in East Elmhurst, Corona area, people gravitated to our stores to get everything. So by building on that and giving people what they wanted to avoid them having to take a bus or train, we became a destination shop. And as that started to grow, and I started to grow, and seeing things that was a void, I came up with the idea of School of Hard Knocks. And School of Hard Knocks was in the beginning stages of, urban clothing, when the only things that we knew of was the carcanage, the cross colors, so forth. And then all of a sudden the FUBUs, the PNBs, and all these other brands started making their name. We were steadily doing what we were doing out of the store. But then it's always that one aha moment where it was a conversation between myself and my cousin. And it was like a back and forth of, Queens and who came out of Queens. And really, if it wasn't for Queens, where would hip hop be? Right. And when I started naming the names of who was from Queens, from in front the camera, behind the scenes, producers and everything, it was crazy. My my idea just clicked of just doing a shirt that had paid homage to people that I knew. And it really started by who I knew and who was around my neighborhood. But one thing we did, and think about this is like 96. We didn't have social media. So the way you got your name out was flyers, word of mouth. So on the back of the shirt, we put our phone number. And the phone calls started coming in steadily. And it was coming from not only the other side of town, when I say people from Jamaica, and you forgot so-and-so on the shirt, you've got this person on the shirt. Right. You can tell when you're on the phone, if you're talking to a Spanish guy, a white guy, and you were like, wow, people really started claiming where they were from and bigging up who was from their neighborhood or who inspired them. Right. And the list just grew. So I say that to say, that Queen shirt opened the door and changed my life, changed our life. and we became a destination store. And on top of that, other things came, becoming the first Black-owned Nike account. Right. When I say that, we were dealing directly with Nike as a distributor. And, you know, that itself was prideful, but we didn't know. You know, sometimes you grind and you do, and you don't know you're leaving a legacy, or you're inspiring others to do things. Right. And my father and I, we opened them doors every day from Monday to Saturday, from 9 to 8 o'clock at night. And we just did. And we hired people from the neighborhood, and it was a destination, you know, it was a real destination.
So let me ask you this. What was like the best advice that your dad gave you once you said, hey, I want to start my own brand, an apparel line, School of Hard Knocks? What advice did he give you?
You know, the interesting thing about my father, once again, I said he was a Trinidadian man who came here, and his story in itself is interesting because when he first came in, he went to Jerusalem. He lived in Jerusalem. He spoke the language. He was, you know, he worked for the United Nations. And when he came back, he was told to make it in this country, you have to own your own business, own your own house. So things that was said to him, it was just put your head down, lace up your boots, and just go. He wasn't one for dropping too many jewels, but when he did say something, it stuck. One thing, and you know, until you bump your head and you learn, he just told me, and it was from his experience, he was just like, you don't need partners, you have family. And he said that one time, and it just didn't make sense to me. But I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, you don't know, you don't understand hip hop, and you know, it was all those things. I was just being not rebellious, but just I thought I was a know-it-all. But when I made mistakes, he wasn't the type of person to throw it in my face like I told you so. He would just pick up the pieces, and we just keep it going. So one of the things he just always said, and I always thought he got it from a movie or something. He just said, you got to be true to the game. That's one thing he used to always say. He's like, you have to be true to the game. And there was this way of saying, like, don't just do it as a hustle, make a business out of it. Don't just, you know, don't half-ass it, because I felt like he really paid his dues as a one-man operation to where we grew it to, you know? So he just really respected, like, if you can't get the right person to do it, figure out, do it yourself, or hire the best people and put the best around, you know, the best people around you. I hate to say he kept his circle small, and he didn't trust people who came with the slick talking, you know? My father never really left the business, so I used to venture out and meet people and deal with the salesmen that came across, go to trade shows. He didn't involve himself with that. His thing was he kept those four walls as tight as possible. That was his whole thing. Really secure where you are, because this is what we have. You know, he didn't understand that I was trying to make something more of a national known brand, or even a global. When Japanese customers used to come to the store, or guys came over there from England, he couldn't understand it. He was like, why are you selling them our inventory? And I'm like, we wholesale it because they're taking it overseas. And he was like, well, we have to sell the community.
Right, exactly. And speaking of community, how important is it that you guys had the store, you and your dad actually had the store in your own community?
Yeah, so once again, like I said, when he found that place, above the store was residential. We lived upstairs for a while, and we lived up there, and then we moved to Long Island for a couple of years, and we moved back, and we lived 2 blocks away from the store. My father's always about family. He's always about community. He really cared for the community a great deal. He got involved with the community. He formed the Northern Boulevards Merchants Association. He got involved with Encore. He served on the board there, and he was an advisor to a lot of people. He was a mentor to a lot of people in the neighborhood. He was friends to a lot of people. And the greatest honor was this year. He passed in 2020 from COVID, and they, renamed the street of the corner where the store was after him. Wow. But it was the amount of people that came that really made me realize the impact that he had. And community is everything. Corona East Elmhurst is a small dot, but he was about Queens. So when I started the whole Queens thing, I didn't realize how much pride it made him. So we had Queens shirts, and we had Corona shirts, but it was just real prideful that he always used to say, I tried to get my father to move to Atlanta, and he was like, nah, this is my home. And I'm like, Dad, you can get it, and he was like, this is my home. This is my, and he lived his life the way he lived it. And he he built his house for his family. He built his business for his community, and he stayed true to who he is, and he never lost who he was. You know, that was one thing.
Such a blessing, definitely. And you know, your dad, and then you're a dad, and now your son is actually, well, you passed the torch on to your son,
Yeah,
who his own brand going on, the Legacy History
yeah,
Pride.
like
They,
yeah.
yes, talk about that.
So yeah, I know. So in the beginning, you mentioned I had Hard Knocks, and I started Tradition. Tradition was a collegiate licensed brand that was more of a lifestyle, stuff geared to the HBCUs. We kind of lost our way when I partnered up with somebody, which my father's always telling me, you don't need partners, you have family. But I partnered with somebody, and it started going in the direction. We started doing PWIs and other schools, and it was just losing its way. Mm-hmm. When it came to the Hawk, my son, not knowing, here it is, you raise your kid, and all you want to do is say, hey, you go to college, you get the degree I never got, you go work for the corporation. And he was just like, I want to continue the legacy. Mm-hmm. He said the word legacy, and I never looked at what we were doing as a legacy. And then when I started looking to it even deeper, it turned into, you know what? I can't name another Black family in the apparel business where the grandfather, the father, and now the son have all, in his case, having success in the industry. I thought this was a real feast of famine type of business. It's not built for everyone. It's a hard investment. It's a lot of work. But he came in with just as I took my father's business and moved it to another notch, he's taken what I did and all what my father did and moved it to another notch. So Legacy History Pride is definitely a premium collegiate brand that serves the HBC community. It's cultivated a following and a community within the HBC community. He does collaborations with everything from Nike to the NBA to the WNBA to Google. He's really spreading his wings, and he's handling his business a totally different way than I went about it. And we're seeing the fruits of his labor. And where I lend my hand with it is I assist him with that overseas production, mentoring him and telling him, and hopefully not allow him to make some of the mistakes I made. And that's not real. I mean, he's going to make his mistakes. He's got to learn in his own accord, but trying to avoid the pitfalls. Right. And, he's having a success, and I'm proud of him. And he's done a hell of a job with what he's doing with LHP. And it's just in his third year. He started it when he was a sophomore at Howard University. And it's been no looking back ever since. It's just been going and going and going. So I play the background, but he's taking over the Queens and keeping Queens alive, because I kind of fell back. Was like, my mentality was, people don't want that no more. But when social media came around, he realized, he was like, people still want it. So, sometimes you get in your own way, and I dated myself, and I made myself retire when there was no retirement. It was like, you know what, if it's just a buzz in Queens, serve Queens, because that's where it started. That was the essence of it. But it's not just Queens, because Queens people are all over. We're all over. And we rep it. Everybody reps in different ways. We're prideful, like Brooklyn people are prideful, or people from Harlem or whatever. But it's going strong still.
Yes, it's big. It's a big deal. Trust me. What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs that want to start like their own brand? What would you tell them?
I think it's the same thing as I tell my son, and I would tell other young men and women, that I think nowadays you have a little head start in the sense of you have access to the information on your thing, right on your phone. But one thing I always say is, it's good that, I get people, where'd you get this, where'd you get that? It's good to get the answers, but you got to do that homework. You got to do that, and you have to develop relationships. The relationships have so much value to it. I couldn't be where I am today if it were not for the relationships I had. It's not just a monetary thing. And people think, I got money, I can do that. No, your relationships have so much value to it. But when you start burning bridges, don't burn bridges, whatever you do. Whatever you do, lay down those bricks. Make that pathway behind you full of bricks, and create a path where somebody else can possibly follow. Right. Because it's just I come from an era where I felt like we were all trailblazers in the young men's urban hip hop fashion, whatever you want to call it. we were doing things and we were stepping out on faith, and we were just, we were putting our hands out in front and we were walking. We didn't know where we were going, and we were doing all we can. It's kind of like people in the music business, they talk about their first record deal and how they got jerked and stuff like that. I would never say I got jerked. I would just say I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that next deal comes around, if and God willing it comes for my son, he's got 2 advisors and his mother and father that, we know the game. We know the smoke and mirrors, and we know all that stuff. And I think that's part of how he's running the business now, where he says, hey, I don't want to deal with wholesaling. I'm going directly to consumer. I'm building an e-commerce platform. Mm-hmm. And his site, if you go to shoplhp.com, that whole website, from photography, from the look, the feel, the blog, that's all him. Wow. That's all him. And I don't make it seem like he's the butcher, baker, and candlestick maker, but he leads the charge in it. He's not directing it. He's doing it himself. Mm-hmm. And then when he farms it out, he's still on top of it. And he's telling them, this is what needs to be, or scrap it and let's start from the beginning. And he gets that, I guess, watching me over the years, but it's really like, get in it, get a mentor, get somebody you could count on to give you that tough love and that real talk, rather than a bunch of a crew of yes men around you,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It's a lot of things out here.
That is good advice for sure. Real quick, because we don't have too much time, but I know I could talk all day with you because it's a lot more that I need. So we might do a part 2 for this. But real quick, what's next? And then also, where can people buy anything from any of the brands, School of Hard Knocks, Tradition, or Legacy, History, Pride?
Yeah. So shoplhp.com is the one-stop shop for School of Hard Knocks as well as LHP. Tradition no longer exists anymore, and that's been put to bed. And LHP is my son's company, which, like I said, School of Hard Knocks is the family business. Mm-hmm. To follow us on social media, everything is under Shop LHP, and you could also go to SOHK Originals, and you can see and follow Queens and see what we have coming out. And just like in all the years I've been doing it, I've never done a hoodie with Queens in the front with the names on the back. And he was like, how come you never did it? And I was like, I just never did it. And we just did it. So that's something we released. The Queen shirt is still alive. We just did a collaboration with Awake. We updated the names. We're constantly updating the names. So, people who say, how come my name's not on there? I'm like, hey, it's still, the possibility's still there. We never said we know, and we never said it's etched in stone and said that's it. But definitely check out shoplhp.com and go to the page where you could about us, and it tells the family history. It tells everything to where we're doing. And his press page is very impressive of all the collaborations and the press and all the stuff he's been getting. It's real good.
It is. I've definitely seen all of them. So shout out to him for making his own way, really. So, and keeping the legacy going for sure. But Gerry, thank you, of course, for your time. I had same exact, not the same shirt, same colors.
Yeah.
I was in high school at Thomas Edison, Queens, which was 20-something years ago. It's okay. But I'm just letting you know that I was repping since 1996. And I definitely appreciate what you guys did for just Queens in itself. It made us feel proud to wear shirts. I may say it's just a t-shirt, but to me, it was just my life. This is me, Queens.
Yeah. Queens is one of the, I tell people it's the most diverse borough, it's the illest borough. And, Queens people, I get it from going out in the clubs back in the day and hearing Brooklyn in the house, Harlem in the house, Bronx in the house. And I'm like, whoa, hold on.
Where's Queens?
Now Queens people, they stand up. As you said, like the Queens Atlanta Day down here. I mean, who would have ever thought that? When I first came to Atlanta, it was all about Bronx Day. Well, let me tell you, it ain't about Bronx.
That's over with now.
Make sure that's on my calendar to be there. That's a month.
And it's going to get bigger and better every year. So
yeah, yeah. So
Queens Day.
Queens.
Yes, Gerry. Thank you again. Okay.
All right. I appreciate you.
All right.